Hello, welcome back to CivilNet's live stream. Today is September 21, 2014. It is the 23rd year of Armenia's independence, and it is also the third birthday of CivilNet. Today, my guest in the studio is Gevorg Ter-Gabrielyan. He is Executive Director of the Eurasia Partnership Foundation. Mr. Danielyan, thank you for joining us here at CivilNet.
Hi.
You know, it's a double sort of celebration for us here at CivilNet, but we've asked you to talk to us today about independence. We often talk about it, but I wonder if we realize the privilege and the responsibility that's associated with independence. And you were a young man when the Qarabağ movement began, with the demise of the Soviet Union and the calls for independence. You were here when the referendum took place. For those of us who lived away from Armenia and watched those images, there was so much hope for the future. If you could just share with us what your feelings were back then.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me, and congratulations with CivilNet Sivilitas's anniversary. But movements are usually, they have this component of having fun, carnival. So it had this carnivalesque component. It was a huge celebration. At the same time, it was very, it had a lot of, it generated a lot of worry, because the essence of the situation was like that. The conflict was escalating. And there was a lot of conspiratorial, kind of manipulative information. There was no internet then, there were no free media. It was all happening on the stage, in the square, in the Opera Square right here, there's Freedom Square. And, the rumors or messages about poisonous, whatever, a chemical substance that has arrived from Azerbaijan and has poisoned 20 or 30 people, things like that, were alongside with real tragedies, the Sumgait tragedy, etc., were accompanying that entire situation. But I mean, when I look back, for me, the most important thing is not that much the movement. I mean, it is extremely important. The most important thing is, how do we understand, what did we achieve? Independence, you say. Yes, independence, but what is that independence about? So for me, the statehood, it's not a new state, what we have today, because we had the statehood, or the pseudo-statehood, in the Soviet times. The ministries, the government, the flow of orders from top down, all that stuff. What is new is sovereignty for me. That's the way I define it for myself, the concept of sovereignty. And what does it mean, sovereignty? That means the capacity of collective action by the nation, even more, not just the capacity, but the margin of freedom that the nation has to make a collective action, maybe the arbitrary action, not in the sense of avoiding responsibility, but in the sense of independently acting for some aims, some goals. So in that sense, in the sense of having sovereignty, despite the ups and downs, despite the difficulties we're having to maneuver between big powers, I think we still keep, and I am speaking not just about this society, but the entire Armenian community all over the world, we still keep, and we even, we have perhaps even increased that feeling, that sense that we're a global nation.
But have we understood sovereignty? Have we understood how to govern ourselves? And let me go one step further and say, have we understood the value of statehood?
That's the difficulty, how much, to what extent, who has understood what. But again, statehood for me, it is something secondary, because a state is a means, it's an instrument. And as I said, it existed before, it exists now, it's not a good one. It has a lot of deficiencies. But what is the way, where do we get the energy from to rebuild something, to reform something? And I think that energy should come from the global community of Armenian nation, because it is a global nation, all together, insiders and outsiders. And the concept of sovereignty should govern us in that respect.
I'm just going to interrupt you because I think what you said is so interesting, that the state is the means through which we as an Armenian nation, whether living in Armenia or anywhere in the world, collectively govern ourselves, collectively make decisions that impact our journey in this world. But again, even that we're having difficulty with.
Well, we're having significant difficulties, and you can explain why, because we inherited that state from the previous times. I usually like making the analogy between taking the 20 years from the Second World War, 1945, 1965. I was born in 64, so when I was like 5 years old or so, which is almost the same time slot we had now from independence, like 23 years from Second World War, if you take. The situation globally was totally different. 1945 Armenia, impoverished, in ruins, after the war, hungry people. 1965-67 Armenia, booming, flourishing, culture is flourishing, theater, movies, cinema, literature, construction, science. And now you take, for instance, the 20 years passed since 1994, the ceasefire on the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. Do we have the same kind of qualitative change? No way. We are still there. The country is in ruins, especially in Karabakh. Countryside is in ruins, it's dilapidated, it's abandoned. So there is a little bit of construction, but in the center and not really nice, pretty ugly. So why is that? What have we missed? The world is moving forward, at least the civilized world, the developed world. The progress is very fast, and we are lagging behind so much.
Are we expecting too much of ourselves? As you said, okay, it's a 23-year-old country, on the ruins of the Soviet Union, the earthquake, the war, the blockade, the energy crisis, all of these things that this country, this state, and the people living in this state had to confront. Are we expecting too much of ourselves?
Well, no, I think that we have been quite unlucky in the sense that because not only here, but also in other post-Soviet countries, and because of the post-Soviet condition, the power has been in a way usurped by the least advanced people, by people who very often follow the rules of the criminal Soviet Stalinesque kind of game. So one thing has been just sheer luck. You could have other set of people who came to power or who became oligarchs, though it was expected that they wouldn't be very well developed, advanced people. But unfortunately, we have that thing that our people who are having the means of making decisions and the means of spending money in their hands, they don't understand much. They don't read books. They don't, they don't have the education and stuff like that. And they follow very different sets of rules. On the other hand, the way I like to say it is that if you are a good manager, and we have had one or two or more examples of such good managers among the ruling people over these years, if you are a good manager, even in the current circumstances, you can enhance the effectiveness of your department, of your work, for maybe 10-20% annually. And if one department does it and another one does it and the third one does it, then these 10%, they seem not much, but then they come together and the quantity becomes quality. Then there is an exponential development. So we are just unfortunately very much lacking these kind of managers. And in the Soviet times, we had these people. We had names that are floating around until today, Hasratyan, I don't know, Alexandr Matveyevich, etc. We had these particular leaders who were in their area of expertise, in their area of responsibility. They're making big reform. Here, in the post-Soviet times, we don't have such state leaders. We have some benefactors or some business people who invested. Ernekan, the airport, I don't know,
But there needs to be institutional fundamental shift in the way we govern and the way we view ourselves. Mr. Ter-Gabrielyan, you know, it's a fascinating conversation. I would love to continue talking with you, but unfortunately, as we are on live, we have to now go to our next segment. But just one final message, if you had, for Independence Day today. One message to your generation, your colleagues, the people.
My message is to the international global Armenian community and insiders as well, but to all together. We should be a network state. We all have responsibility for making the Armenia as a global player on the global scene. So let's do it all together.
All together, united. Very good. On that positive note, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. I'd like to remind our viewers that my guest was Gevorg Ter-Gabrielyan. He's the executive director of the Eurasia Foundation, the Eurasia Partnership Foundation. Thank you very much. So keep watching CivilNet. Thank you.